they're weirdly confident in close games.
Hello and welcome in. It's always college football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy. It is January 19th. We are sitting outside in a frigid Atlanta, Georgia, just a couple hundred yards away from Mercedes-Benz Stadium, where the national champion will be crowned a little over 24 hours from now. You're probably sitting there wondering, why are you guys outside? Because they won't let us inside. The teams are practicing and walking through. Believe me, if we could be inside, we would be, but we are not. We are braving the elements with you out here in Atlanta. Everyone is on deck. We do, however, have a couple of ACF team members that are struggling a little bit today. Joey Chestnut, yes, that Joey Chestnut, made Jack Foster drink some whiskey shots last night. He is 21. We can confirm it is legal, but the struggle bus is real for the ACF team. Fortunately, I'm a professional, and I have no problems going through this show whatsoever. We have a great show coming up. Stanford Steve will join us, talk about some of the angles that we will hit from a gambling perspective. If you want to pursue that avenue, Stanford Steve has you covered, but we're also going to talk a little bigger picture. What does this potential win mean for Ohio State? What does this potential win mean for Notre Dame? And then how is the 12-team playoff being received from his vantage point? He's been on College Game Day. He's been at multiple playoff games in each of the last few weeks. How has the 12-team playoff performed in his eyes? So we look forward to having that visit. One other thing that we have noted, and we had talked about it a little bit before we started the show, it's pretty remarkable walking around Atlanta. We're here staying at the Signia, which is right next door to Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it's pretty remarkable just how split it feels. I thought usually when we're on the road doing games and being at the last 12 national championships and probably 15 championships in my lifetime, I'm pretty amazed at how often there feels like a pretty significant advantage in favor of one fan base. That is not the case here in Atlanta. It really feels like it's going to be 50-50, and according to Vivid Seats, they are saying 54% Notre Dame, 46% Ohio State. That's what's expected in the stadium. Of course, that's firsthand. Secondary market could dictate things being a little bit different than that, but from our vantage point, it does feel about as split as it's ever felt heading into the national championship. I think both fan bases are starting to rally up a little bit as well. There is a massive, massive high school volleyball tournament going on. There are 1 million people playing here at the Georgia World Congress Center. But now that that is over, it ends today, you're seeing more and more scarlet, and you're seeing an awful lot of gold and navy blue, and a little bit of green in there as well. It's pretty neat, pretty great venue, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not saying it as a prisoner of the moment. Atlanta has been a tremendous host city up to this point. We very much look forward to seeing how it delivers tomorrow night in the game. One other thing of note, I do have some thoughts on the 12-team playoff, adjustments and tweaks that I would recommend. They will be meeting about the future of the college football playoff tomorrow. All 10 conference commissioners, presidents, people that are gonna come in and have a pretty heavy hand in the future of the college football playoff, they're meeting tomorrow. And for change to go down, it requires unanimity, which I cannot imagine those 10 people coming together tomorrow and finding a way to be unanimous about changing the playoff. However, I do think in 2027, a year from now, we will have a different format and we will have some alterations. I will make recommendations on those alterations on our show coming up on Thursday. So you don't want to miss that. We will release a show a little later in the week, how to fix the 12-team college football playoff. Like, rate, and subscribe if you can, because you might want to listen to some of the things I have to say. And if you are a fan of home playoff games, you're really going to like some of the things that I have to say. But it's the day before the national championship. Let's move into our discussion and conversation with Stanford Steve. Here with Stanford Steve, does a great job on the SVP pod, and we see him always with Scotty at night. Bad beat, by the way, yesterday.
Yeah.
For those that were sitting on -9.5,
Very
and they
fortunate.
take a safety with 11 seconds left.
Very fortunate.
You're the first person I thought of. We also were watching the game for a vast majority of it, for sure. So, interesting game nonetheless. But this game on Saturday, on Monday. Right now, 8.5 thereabouts for Ohio State. Do you have a lean at this point?
I've been leaning Notre Dame just because I look at all they've overcome, and now with the offensive line being shuffled again, it sounds like Jagasaw's going to go to left tackle. He filled in right. He's supposed to be the left tackle from the start of the season. But you know you're cooking with fire if you take Notre Dame with the points because of the versatility of the Ohio State offense and the problems that they bring because of their personnel. But again, I just go back. I believe Notre Dame can muck it up. You saw how they're weirdly confident in close games. Like I've seen, you've seen some of their best play. The play that Gray makes on the intercept. It's an unbelievable play with as Penn State's trying to attack you and go win the game. So there's obviously when you get to this point, there's a monster team belief. But I don't love it right now, but I would lean towards Notre Dame in the points.
It's one of those where I feel like you're going to kind of know how the game's going to go within the first 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Is it one of those where you think it could flip on a dime and all of a sudden the lid comes off the end zone and it becomes a scoreathon like Notre Dame was against Penn State? Or do you think this is a game where if it's a track meet early, that's leaning heavily in favor of Ohio State?
No doubt. And when you go back and watch Ohio State against Texas, it's all self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah.
You go down, you make it 7-0. Then Henderson gets the personal foul. You face a 3rd and 26, then a 2nd and 20 on your next series, then a 3rd and 10. That's not a recipe for success. And I heard Chip talk this week just about we did it to ourselves. And then your game plan, then you start losing up front in matchups. And then, Texas gets the ball rolling. They tie the game, and then you get the fortunate big play for the second half. But, yeah, Notre Dame has to start fast in this game because, again, you're cooking with fire knowing the audacity that Ohio State has offensively.
I don't know if there's like a prop out there, but if you could parlay like a non-offensive touchdown prop with a Notre Dame win, I feel like that would be pretty remarkable because that might be the route for them to actually get there.
Yeah, I think everybody's like, they got to win the turnovers. They just can't be minus, in my opinion. You can't. Knowing the challenges that Notre Dame has and, they want to play the run game, and it sounds like Love is the healthiest he's been. And we talk about Riley Leonard being a run factor. They can't go behind early, and they got to possess the ball. But that all starts with their defense playing well and winning and getting off the field.
Yeah, and for those of you that are concerned about our safety and well-being as a result of the 75-mile-an-hour wind gusts, we're fine. It's actually more cold than it is structurally intimidating. If that's what you're hearing, don't worry, we're good. Steve is shaking, and his teeth are chattering, but we're fine. He's from California. We'll keep him in our...
Connecticut.
Okay, but you went to Stanford.
For only 4 years.
Yeah, but those are very impressionable years.
Yeah.
All right.
So they got softened up in 4 years. That's what you're
100%.
telling me. All right.
Well, not that Stanford's soft for those of both of our Stanford listeners. We're not a soft organization, but definitely not exactly one that I would align with toughness.
Okay.
When you look at Ohio State, I know that there's got to be 7 or 8 props that you're looking at. For me, I'm not sure which ones I would lean towards. I think it feels like receiver over, running back under, but I don't know. That feels too obvious. Do you see it?
Yeah, I think it's really tough. We've seen these running back duels. You saw Penn State do it, and then they talked about how whoever started got the first 2, and then but that flipped. That wasn't right in the Orange Bowl. And then when you look at Notre Dame, they didn't know what they were going to get out of Love. So then you have, 2 other guys coming in, but then Love's the guy in the second half and has a great touchdown run. But when I look at Ohio State, I think you got to play Jeremiah Smith as its own. I still think he wasn't himself. Being on the field for early in that game, he has a dive for a catch, and he hit the ground hard. And I don't know if he was 100% that game. But then you go back to 2 previous games, the onus was to get him the football.
Yeah.
They moved him around. You saw a focus of getting him the ball. I would think they're going to go back to that. So I would lean over. He's around 79.5. The guy I really like is Ibuka. you saw them use the middle of the field against Texas, which I think you had to early on, but then again, the self-inflicted penalties got them out of their rhythm. Ibuka's played Notre Dame twice in his career already. He had 9 for 90 and a touch in 22, and then last year I believe it was like 6 for 75. He's probably going to be matched up against Gray. I like that matchup better because I think the world of Leonard Moore. I can't wait to watch him against Jeremiah Smith. But I would go Ibuka, and then the running backs is tough. Trevion breaks his receiving yards on one play last week, and then Judkins got the majority of the carries. So I think that's tough to handicap because, whether you're talking about in a championship game, all right, we're going to play the hot hand here. If one of the running backs does well early, the other guy might not get the necessary touches to get his numbers. So the best thing I like about Ohio State's offense props, I look at Emeka Egbuka.
What about Notre Dame? Any props that kind of jump out to you?
I think they have to throw the ball to be successful. Now, they're not going to wing it and chuck it, 50 yards down the field. That's not what they do. They don't have guys really to do that. But I look at the idea of what you have to do against Ohio State. Their corners have been really, really good this back half of the year. So, and then, we talk about the different in defense where they're playing that 3-high look and they're splitting Simon and Styles out, which, how can you get matched up? Can Mitch Evans do some work against them? Was it Robiton, number 9?
Yeah.
I think he's a really good athlete. I think he could be a matchup problem. But how do you get them on the linebackers for Ohio State? And then Aeneas Williams, I go back to him. I thought the spark they got from Angeli getting the points on a drive before the half, Aeneas Williams getting that first touchdown drive in the second half, running a double move on a linebacker, that's a game plan thing. You put him in for that reason. So I think they're going to have things set for Aeneas Williams. He's a guy I like receiving yards. I still think Faison is the guy that has the most wiggle and get openness, if you will, for a receiver. So I look at him. I mean, their numbers are going to be low, but I expect Notre Dame to have to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So I'll take more of a chance with Notre Dame guys. So I like Faison over. I like Aeneas Williams over.
I think it makes sense, too. I mean, the Raritan, number 9,
yeah.
Eli Raritan, 6'6", 260 pounds, can run. I think an anytime touchdown prop with him would be interesting. In the red zone, they like to use the tight end.
Yeah.
And I think at 6'6", his length is challenging. I know Lathan Ransom is probably going to be responsible for Mitchell Evans,
yep.
which means Caleb Downs probably going to be responsible for Riley Leonard's legs. Who's covering Raritan?
Yeah.
I think Raritan with an anytime touchdown prop makes sense. What about first half, first quarter, game total?
The total's tough. I know both defenses are really good. If it becomes a multiple score game, Notre Dame's going to have to throw their game plan out, and like I said, they're going to have to throw the football. So I could see that happening the more times you think about it. So I would lean towards the over. But then on the other side, the tendencies tell you first half under.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. I think it's a really hard game to handicap because you know what Notre Dame wants to do. They've had a deal where stay in the game, and make plays in the fourth quarter. But that explosiveness of Ohio State really, really scares me. So I would, if you're going to do totals, I'm not really liking. I've had a better feel in their games previous. This one's tough because now everything's laid out on the line. So first half, if that makes any sense, first half under, game over. I think you're going against the trend too,
right,
which some people like to do in a championship game with so much at stake.
Yeah, I think it makes some sense too. And I think teams play it close to the vest, knowing a mistake could flip pretty quick, especially there early on. Getting out of kind of the gambling angle and just moving more into the big picture. We know what the championship would mean to the teams, but to the coaches specifically, how does the narrative change on Ryan Day if victorious on Monday night?
I mean, it's a complete 180 from where we were a month ago. I mean, this is
you
funny.
were there. How tense was it leading up to the game at Ohio State?
Super tense.
Against Michigan.
And I just thought. The biggest factor was what that happened. I didn't know what to expect from Ohio State going into the Tennessee game. And then you see that. I mean, that game's over in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Nico made some plays. They got it to 21-10 at half. But
it
the
never
foundation
felt like Tennessee was going to win that game.
No, I mean, they got the ball in the first to start the second half, didn't do anything. It's over. But I just think about these two teams. Notre Dame loses to Northern Illinois. People destroyed Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. Ohio State loses to Michigan. It's as bad as anything that's ever happened there, knowing how much onus, and they did that to themselves, and how they treat that game. And I'm interested to see how they treat it going forward. You know, talking to Coach Saban when we're at Ohio State, he's walking through, he's like, I don't agree with this. Like the countdown to one game. And he's like, I get it's your rival, but you did it. You know, the next game is the biggest game. Same, yeah. You know? Right. So it was really interesting to hear him talk about that. And then you see it happen. It's like, maybe you got to change some things here. Then they do a players meeting with Ryan Day, and it sounds like everybody got the gist, but you still wanted to see it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge boost. Because I think it does erase the Michigan loss. You know, as much as Michigan has that, you have a national title.
Right.
That's what, I mean, everybody's trying to get here Monday night.
Right.
And if you're able to do that, and I think Notre Dame, I mean, you talk about stepping on the accelerator and going back and thinking about how excited they were with the video when Marcus gets introduced as the head coach, you know, good seasons, and then boom, national title, like year 3, and the whole idea of Notre Dame coaches' success in year 3. I think it'll be just immense. And I'll tell you, I think Notre Dame, when you're looking across the board at programs in this NIL world, stability and what Notre Dame has with alignment and funding and all that, they are so far ahead of where I believe they thought they were going to be after year 3 with Marcus Freeman. It'd be an unbelievable story, and I believe they're here to stay with him.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like they're going anywhere.
No. But the way the schedule, the playoff, like
right.
it's set for them.
Yeah, I mean, $20 million payday just in this playoff run alone is pretty good. That they have to split with exactly nobody, which is pretty impressive.
Unbelievable.
As well. Looking at Notre Dame in the future, with Riley Leonard being gone after this game, do you think this is a team? I mean, the stars have aligned this year. Let's just acknowledge, like the stars have aligned. The match have been fortuitous. The regular season schedule was not catastrophically challenging.
No.
But is this a team that, like you said, they're not going anywhere, but is this a team that can get back to this game next year depending on what holes they have to fill?
Yeah, I believe it. Like, you talk about the schedule, you know, they're piecing together the ACC. They're not playing, you know, a couple MAC schools in there. Hey, it's Notre Dame. They've done it forever, and good for them, you know. But when you look at the roster, you know, I look at the quarterback position. I can't talk more highly enough of what Angeli did in that game. Like he looked comfortable throwing the ball, and then they got the Carr kid, who was a big recruit. So it feels like they're going to be good at quarterback. And then on defense, I mean, they got some youth, man.
Right.
Like Leonard Moore, an absolute true friend. Like he was playing high school last year. That's insane. So yeah, I believe Notre Dame's here. Ohio State on the other side, though. I mean, there's rumors about Knowles and actually Al Golden too, but like the coaches, what they got to do, you got to figure with this window, these guys doing it for how long? There's a plan in place to replace the coaches. But Notre Dame, I mean, there's 8 of 11 on defense. Like they're like, oh, does he have another year in this day and age where we're like, is he coming back next year and this and that? Like, no, they are fully out of eligibility. Like they're done. And a lot of program guys, you know, Sawyer being the talk about being that first Ryan Day recruiting class, they lose a lot.
Yeah.
But they still have number 4 on offense, so I believe they'll be all right.
Pretty good place to start, that's for sure. A lot of pieces to figure out, though, offensively and defensively for Ohio State. Looking at kind of the Big Ten and the fact that Michigan has now won the championship last year, Ohio State potentially victorious tomorrow, is this, in your eyes, an indication of a shift to the powers that are the Big Ten, as opposed to the SEC dominance over the last 2 decades?
No, I don't think it's a total shift. I think it's a proven ground where you're, say, a Penn State or an Oregon, you know, with Washington getting to the game last year and now them being a Big Ten team, like it's doable.
Yeah.
You know, you see these people and these teams that have done it. But I just wonder about the bottom with the teams like, you know, Jeff Brom takes the job at Louisville. In his last game, they play in the Big Ten title game. And, like, I think of a school like Purdue. Like, they're never going to go to a Big Ten title game again. Like, they just –
How do you know?
Look at
Don't
what
tell Barry Odom that.
I love Coach Odom. Just texting him yesterday, checking in. How's West Lafayette doing? But I just think, I mean, the Illinois, I worry about, do they have what it takes to be at that level? and just looking at the funding with the new numbers, like, some say it's going to be $30 million next year for teams that were $20 million this year.
Yeah.
Like, I live in Maryland, and there's talks like they got $3 million. Like, how, it's just, it doesn't feel fair. Now, with the revenue share and all that coming in, who knows? But I look at Penn State as a team, I believe they proved their worth. You look at what they're investing now, it sounds like they got all hands on deck where they are going to be a problem for the rest of the Big Ten for years to come. So I still, going back to the shift, I don't believe it's because I think there's more capable teams in the SEC. We've seen teams do it down there and multiple teams, whereas it's been a Michigan, Ohio State thing. All right, Penn State got their chance this year, nice. Washington took a step back. Oregon is everybody's darling, but they still haven't done it when it mattered the most. So I just think there's more capable teams in the SEC when you're looking at those two conferences. The ACC, good luck. I don't know what to tell you there. That conference is in trouble.
Why? You got Stanford.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. You might not want them when you're drafting teams in college football.
Easy.
Clemson will be good, though.
Clemson's going to be really good.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in Clemson. I think Miami's still going to be a player for sure. I also am still optimistic, and maybe I'm just naive. I'm optimistic on what could become of Virginia Tech and some teams like that. It's still, to me, the ACC is very strong. Not as strong as the Big Ten and the SEC.
No, exactly.
But still,
in the pecking order,
Yeah, they have a championship contender. I don't know if I can say that right now out of the Big 12. No. Is there someone in the Big 12 that you think could rise up and win a natty?
Not right now.
Really?
No.
Not even Iowa State?
No.
That's your team.
I love Iowa State.
I know you do.
Not when you're talking about these teams that are here and what they're up against.
Yeah. What about the 12-team playoff? We're now a night away from this concluding. I feel like most people view it as a tremendous success. How do you view it?
I view it as a huge success. Being on the road at different places every week this year with game day, you just felt the energy of every place. And, the talk was, is it going to be too many? And Coach Saban made a great point right at the beginning. I think we were in Ireland. He's like, but you have to look at the bottom. Look at how much more excitement there are from the teams from 12 to 18, where they're still, hey, we win 2 games here, we're going to get in. Clemson was left for dead, 2 weeks, and they get a win from Syracuse, and boom, they beat SMU, they're in the playoff. So the excitement level is great. I think, I played for Coach Willingham at Stanford. He was on the committee in previous. I saw him in the lobby this morning. We were just chit-chatting. I said, what do you think? Changes? We have the playoff, and now everybody wants change, right? And the problem is you have 1 year where it flipped upside down, and something happened that no one thought would happen if you came back to last year at this time, where the Big 12 and the Mountain West champion are getting buys in the playoff.
Yeah.
So that's going to be really interesting, knowing that it's going to have to be a unanimous vote by presidents and ADs, with those Power Four. So that sounds like a lot. But the committee, people on the committee talking to them, they feel like it's going to change. But that's a lot of motion that has to get in the right direction for a unanimous vote for change that. I think it's a huge success. And again, the more teams that get a chance, I feel like is better. The money that's being thrown around, the investment level, the energy and excitement is bringing. There's nothing like college football.
No.
So it's a win.
It's a win. I agree. The only thing I'd change is somehow find a way to get more games played on campus. That'd be it. And other than that,
good one. Yeah.
If we're gonna expand, fine. Do it. I don't care anymore. Take it to 100. I don't care anymore. Just give me more games on campus. We're good. We'll figure it out beyond that. Steve, it's been great, man. Good to see you. You got a pick for us?
I'll take Notre Dame plus 8.5.
I don't want the points. I want to know outright.
Ohio State wins. Notre Dame covers.
You took Commanders money line. Why
did.
Are you scared to take the Irish money line?
Again, I'm scared of Ohio State's offense.
Understandable.
I'll say, what do we got? Let's go 27-19.
27-19.
Yeah.
So you are literally just right on the handicap.
Yeah.
20.5, I think, is team total for Notre Dame, and 27.5 is team total.
Is it 20.5?
Yeah.
We go low there. I thought it was 18.5.
I saw 20.5. Either way, good stuff, buddy.
We'll see ya.
Absolutely. Go warm up.
You too.
That'll do it for us here at Always College Football. We very much appreciate you guys being with us here today from a frigid Atlanta, Georgia. But we will have all-day coverage tomorrow on our social media platforms. Follow us at AlwaysCFB. You can also follow me at Greg McElroy on X, on Instagram. We'll have a bunch of behind-the-scenes stuff leading up to game time. And then, of course, we will have our post-game show live from inside the stadium as confetti is raining down. We will put a bow on what's been a tremendous 2024 college football season. So for all of us here at Always College Football, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack who is also limping, I'm Greg. We hope you have an amazing day. And remember, it's always college football.
Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.